Hey, what's up, everybody? BDO 44 coming into another video. All right, so what am I talking about right now? Anthony Davis. Him. That's who I'm talking about. That dude, he is that guy. And mind you, because he's that guy, we got to devise a very, very, very strong strategy going forward in regards to him. We know that we've had him for what, 3 years now, and he's never shown us necessarily this side of himself in terms of the type of dominance that he's shown us over the last 7, 10 games. He is basically your MVP right now, and that's one of those situations where you look at the ebbs and flows and the starts of your team in regards to the season and how things have gone, and you saw yourself go off to a 2-10 start, and you understood that all the opinions that went along with that were justified at the time. We were thinking about what we needed to do to go forward, and all this time we were working under the understanding that Anthony Davis was basically a guy who's going to be in and out of the lineup. And when he is out there, if he starts to get himself together, we can look forward to him giving us 30-point games, 35-point games. Like, we were looking forward to a real level of Anthony Davis. We knew he's going to affect things defensively, but one of the issues we've had with him, specifically last year, is we found he wasn't that great of a rebounder. We couldn't seem to get consistent 18, 19 rebound games and stuff like we're seeing now. It looked like he was getting out rebounding. He was just not in shape. His conditioning was bad. After he won that NBA championship in 2020, I think he started eating lobster and good, real good. And I think that's what honestly happened. He just let himself go. And injuries come when that happens. You don't take care of yourself. You don't do what you need to do to make sure your diet is right. Your body going to wear down, especially being a big person. So what we've seen is him kind of take his conditioning much more seriously. I don't think he was pleased with how his conditioning was last year at all. And I think it was one of those situations where he just did what he needed to do to put himself in a position to be the version of himself that he once was in New Orleans. And now we're seeing that pay off. It's paying dividends as we speak. We're seeing him get just completely in a zone every single night. And the Lakers are starting to understand what needs to be done when they have a player playing that way. And that's an adjustment in and of itself. So what I'm encouraged by in regards to this team is just the various ebbs and flows and the different things that they've been forced to adjust to in a very short window of time. And I credit a lot of that to the schedule and how it was constructed, giving us so many difficult teams to face in our early stages. What it did was give us the guys that we were not a good team, and we were working against our tendencies, trying to make some sense of what it is that we were seeing, when the reality was we were just beating teams we had no business beating and probably wouldn't have beaten in that setting, given the fact that we were just developing who we were going to be, rookie coach, new players, all this different stuff that needed to be working to the equation. Obviously, Russell Westbrook's situation had not been settled. We didn't know what we were going to get out of him. And because he was in that starting lineup, kind of clogging things, I think it was bad for both on the play and morale as well. Guys weren't really buying in. I think that kind of catered to AD's overall way of looking at things. I don't think he was feeling too good about stuff when guys weren't buying in, when guys weren't ready to sacrifice stuff like that. It's just like anything else. You're just part of a bad situation. But when guys start making those sacrifices one by one, you start seeing people buy into what Darvin Ham is talking about. And you start having these moments where you go down 10-2 in your record, and you understand that it requires you to dig deep and look inside of yourself. And we were having some hard conversations on this camera about Anthony Davis. We were having some hard conversations on this camera about the front office, about LeBron James, about Jeanie Buss, and everybody. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of those types of conversations were being had everywhere. And I think that information and that energy got to AD in a positive way. It was able to reach him and help him understand that the challenges that Laker Nation was setting for him was a reasonable one. And it would be determining whether or not we believed in him. I said many times throughout his struggles, I was like, I'm looking forward to getting on the AD train again. I'm looking forward to him winning me over again. You know what I mean? Because it's one of those situations where it's like, it's really all about how well he's playing. All of it. And how we were looking at things was based on the fact that we didn't have enough because LeBron James was the number one star. And as the number one star, he ain't enough for us right now. We need somebody else to step in and play this dominant way in order for what Bron brings to the table right now can be enough for us to win a championship. So we're looking at the situation is assuming that that's not coming through the door. So we're assessing how best we can find our way to being a good enough team. Maybe if we can get Kyrie Irving over here, maybe that would be enough firepower to put us over the hump with a 18 and 9 rebounds Anthony Davis and aging LeBron James with a lesser roster. So we're trying to figure it out. It's like, okay, that's what the conversation's been. And then he turns and flips a switch and turns into this version of Anthony Davis, and all of a sudden you have an entirely different set of things to think about. So you go from at the beginning of this process, when he started breaking out of the slump, so to speak, you start saying, okay, maybe it makes sense to start trading him. You start thinking about that through the first 4 or 5 games of this process. You're like, he's strung together about 3 or 4 30-point games. This is a good time to start shopping. So you're adjusting your thinking to that. And then he keeps it up. And then at this point, it's like, all right, that's still the case, but the longer he keeps this up, the less wise you look into considering that as an option. And then by the time he gets to where he was last night with the Washington Wizards, 55 points, 17 rebounds, and having this been like the 10th game in a row where he's been above 30 points, you understand that he's playing at a level that not only are you unwise for trading him right now, but you're not really sure if this is as high as it goes. As I told you guys after the Bucks win, no, it wasn't the Bucks win I said this. I think it was maybe after one of the San Antonio wins when he was really going on. I don't know. You guys tell me. But somewhere along the lines, I said that I think this elevator goes higher. When he was scoring 30 points every night, I'm like, nah, it goes higher than this. Because I had seen him at a higher level. We've all seen him score 57 points, 58 points, 51 points with the New Orleans Pelicans. So we know it goes higher than this. And we can see he was on the verge of that. And so at this point, you're looking at him like as if someone that can break out and not only go to a level that you've seen him reach before, but the potential of where he could go from here could be higher than what you saw back then in New Orleans. Because at the end of the day, when he was with New Orleans, he was a younger player. He wasn't in the condition that he's in now. And because he was a younger player, he's now a better player, a smarter player, an NBA champion now. And so a lot of what was going on between this moment and the time he got to the LA was just adjusting to playing with LeBron, adjusting to being a Laker, and then adjusting to the different organizational decisions that the Lakers made, coupled with his body not being in condition and stuff like that. So when you look at all of that, this is just a perfect storm of now he's in a situation where, for better or for worse, we know our situation with our teammates. We had Russell Westbrook last year. So even though this is not anyone's choice, the synergy of knowing him and knowing what to expect from him kind of gave us an understanding of how to settle in based on from Anthony Davis' standpoint. It's like he's no adjustment. His LA situation is settled. Obviously, if you have to, it takes a couple years sometimes to get everything that you need in place for everybody to be straight. And I think that's where we're at with Anthony Davis. He's just in a place where he's probably finally fully settled and now can fully play basketball without recovering from injury and without any distractions and without any anything to any way to keep him from being his best self. We have the system in place that we're now using him properly. He's catching the ball in different places. You couple that with his conditioning, and that's a big deal. Darvin Ham being in place, and just players like Russell Westbrook, like Patrick Beverley, like other players on this team, Austin Reeves, guys who are, self-motivated, guys who can help motivate him, guys who are able to put him in position to succeed. And that is really also a part of what is going well for Anthony Davis. He's relying upon other people to feed him, and the Lakers had a hard time doing that a good portion of the time based on LeBron James being featured and everything being kind of centered around him being the first option. But if you run things through AD, you're more than likely to have higher percentage possessions. And that was always the case. It was the case when we won the championship in 2020, but it was just one of those situations where it wasn't necessary for LeBron to take that back seat based on where he was. And so it was about him at the time, and that's what, as it should have been. But now that we're at this place, that's no longer where we want to be. With LeBron being where he's at and at 38 years of age and some of the deficiencies that are ultimately shown when things are being run with him this season, it's not like we're taking something away from Bron in my mind in terms of leaning on AD. It became a situation where AD needed to take over. And so he's done so, and now we need to lean on him. It's one of those. And so Accepting that, I think, is a difficult thing for everybody. For LeBron James specifically, if I'm just reading into what I'm looking at, I don't think he's having a good time with that process today. But just like any other adjustment, he will see the fruit in adjusting, and I think he'll be fine, man. Because at the end of the day, this is what he put together. This is what he put together. I just don't know that he still wanted the same things now that he wanted 4 years ago. I guess that's where we're at. I think that's what I'm sensing. And maybe LeBron was looking forward to this day, but now that this day has come around, he has an entirely different set of things that he wants to do. And so making this kind of sacrifice doesn't necessarily fit those things. Maybe if AD would have taken the keys sooner, he would have been able to adjust better, but this is just a weird time for him for this adjustment to be taking place. Now, that's what I'm sensing. But the way I see it is, it's not like the adjustment is forced. It's not like the adjustment is leading to us to losing. You know what I mean? This is an upgrade from our circumstances based on how we were playing. So we got to lean on it, and it makes sense to lean on it for the organization and everybody involved. So this is just what it is. We need Bron to buy in. We need everybody to buy in. And I think the example that Russell Westbrook led with by having to take the bench role disarmed any notion that anybody else can afford to be on this team without making sacrifices. You got to make sacrifices if you're going to be here this season, and that's just what it's about. From the top guy to the bottom guy. And I think if LeBron James buys in the way that we need him to, which I don't doubt that he will, we're going to be in a situation where we're contender for the rest of the season so long as we keep other guys active and sharp and current. And I like to say who's current, who's playing well. We need to keep the other guys playing well. If Kendrick Nunn is struggling, Austin Reeves is struggling, et cetera, et cetera. Wenyen Gabriel can't get on the floor, play right. Thomas Bryant can't play right. If all of those guys are struggling and are not playing well while Anthony Davis is going off at 57, the moment Anthony Davis rolls an ankle, we're going to go tumbling down the standings like crazy. So if anything, we need to be very, very intent on developing those guys no matter what's going on with the stars. Whether Anthony Davis is going 57 points a night or if he's scoring 16 points a night, if we don't have positive production from those other players, we will be too reliant on AD and will still lead to us being a bad team in the end. We'll just have a nice little era of him playing well right now, just like I referred to LeBron James playing center last season where everybody was hooraying that crap, and I told y'all we needed to stop that because he wasn't going to make it through the season. I referred to it a lot. This is yet another one of those, and that's what we need to guard against. So keeping guys current, keeping everybody playing well, keeping them in regular rotation and feeling positive about themselves is important. Probably more important than getting AD up to 50 points a night, which I know is something we're going to be testing on trying to do just because of the level that he's playing at. But I think this is a marathon, and we are playing chess, not checkers, even though I said checkers, not chess earlier. This is a chess game that we're trying to play, and we don't need to do anything at all that's going to get in the way of what our team goal is, which is winning the NBA championship. And nothing short of that at this point, when you see a guy on your roster putting up 55, 17, and all these different defensive stats on top of that. He's clearly the best player in the league right now on both sides of the floor. I don't think it's up for debate, honestly. With the last 10 games, it's the only thing we can refer to. The only thing we're choosing to refer to, rather. In this 10-game span, he's the best player in basketball on both sides of the floor. And the key to us is now to capture that and understand you don't have to trade him at this level, because the leverage of being at this level makes him somebody that you can always refer to this level once he drops from it. That's what leverage this level actually provides you. It's just like the leverage of having LeBron James, and no matter what level he's playing at, once he shows you he can do this, you got to respect it. And I think the difference between yesterday's AD, of whom we knew could do this, and today's AD, who's done it once again, is the once again. When he did this back in New Orleans, like 6 years ago, that was a player who had proven himself to be worthy of being traded for a bunch of stuff for which we traded for. That ended that. As soon as we traded all that for him, now he had to reestablish he's that guy again, or otherwise it's just a bad trade. He's reestablished he's that guy again, which means he has that leverage once again to be that guy, even if he's not that guy tomorrow. Like, let's say he comes out and has a dud of a game tomorrow, 15 points, 7 rebounds. And everybody's, falls off of a cliff in regards to Anthony Davis and expects that from him from here on out. Let's just say that's what we expect from him after that. All of this great stuff is over. He's going back to 17 5 Anthony Davis. At that point, I am no longer going to price him the way I would have priced him before he started this 10-game stretch. Because that 10-game stretch just proved to me that he can do that again. So what that tells me is I'm going to attach that to his price and still demand top value next time he goes through a stretch where he's not his best, or next time he has an injury that stresses my head to no end and I want to trade him. The value is going to be much, much higher because of the resurgence of him going to 55 after having been called street clothes and all of these other different things that we had just settled into our understanding. Now we understand that this specimen can pop at any moment, and we're trading him with the understanding of that versus him being somebody who's done. So I don't have to trade him right now. This is the price forever. You're going to give me 8 picks for him, or you ain't getting him. Regardless if he's struggling or not, busted knee or not, this is going to be his price. Because now we know at any moment, if he's healthy and his conditioning is right, he can go for 55 or higher and affect the defensive side of the ball in ways that your other MVP candidates will not be able to if their name isn't Giannis or Joel, basically. So, yeah, that's where we're at. He's Giannis and Joel, and you need to price him up there if you want to have conversations with the Lakers about him from here on out. That's where we're at. So as a Laker fan, I absolutely do not trade him. I understand that was a good strategy, maybe if 3 or 4 games into this process, if we thought he was going to stop doing this, because it's just a surge. But 10 games ain't no surge. 10 games with increasing averages as those games are going by, that is tendencies. Those are tendencies, scary tendencies at that if you're an opponent. And this man's went for 30-something, 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 then he's going to 44, and then he's going to 55. Where's he going next? 60? Possibly. Quite honestly, if you're the Cleveland Cavaliers, that's exactly what you're worried about. 60. And they're going to probably try to guard him with that intent. So we need to understand that he's going to be getting the type of defense that he's not been getting. Let's just be real. Everybody and their grandmama talking about Anthony Davis is the best player in the world right now. So what does that mean? He's going to get the defenses that come with being the best player in the world. Now, can he sustain that, or will he wear down? Will this turn into another injury for him? And that's why we don't need to overdo it in regards to leaning on him. Because if teams are thinking like me, the only defense the Lakers need to be seeing is him, and you're just going to try to see if LeBron James wants to beat you. That's the only way you have to force LeBron James to beat you now. That's where we're at with this, if you got to strategize against us. Because if you let Anthony Davis go to work, the game's over at halftime, basically. Then it's about whether or not the Lakers can keep the lead. So, yeah, he's going to be starting to see some defenses that he hasn't seen in a very long time, and we need to be prepared to have enough going on without him involved in it to be able to win games when that happens. Because if they're focusing everything on him, that means that guys we've been working on are going to have opportunities to have open shots. Guys who we've been trying to see if we can get them to play well, and seeing them play well, now they're going to have opportunities to kill it again. Lonnie Walker, Austin Reeves, Wenyen Gabriel. We just got to choose the right ones to put on the floor. And that's where Darvin Ham comes in. We're going to need him to just, you know what I mean? Do what you have to do, man. I don't know what to suggest. I don't want to second guess his moves. But everybody agrees that going without size against Washington was something that only you should try against Washington. That's all we can really say about that. As long as he's continuing to do what makes sense in regards to what makes sense, then we can be cool. But if he tries this small ball stuff like he did against Washington, against Cleveland, obviously we'll be in a bad space. So that's something that we don't want to see. But so far, so good. He did it against Washington, and that's key. We need to all remember that the crap that we hated was done against a team that you could absolutely get away with it against. And I try to hold close to that when I assess these mistakes, quote-unquote mistakes that I see him making. Yeah, that's my strategy with, just to revamp what we're already saying, that's my strategy with Anthony Davis. I don't have to trade him. Him playing this well has bought me all the leverage in the world to keep him at this price, regardless if he keeps at this level or not. No trading him while he's playing this well. No, sir. That's what you don't do. So that's where we're at with that. And, all these other teams that were not interested in Anthony Davis a week ago, they should definitely be interested in Anthony Davis. You're going to start hearing them call you for Anthony Davis. All those different trades that may have been having his name involved in them, now these teams are going to call back. You know what I mean? And they're going to put more on top of those things. Some of those deals we probably wanted, you're going to see more on top of those deals because of how he's played these last 10 games. So Rob Pelinka has a tough decision to make once those phone calls start ringing, and I'm sure they've already begun. Teams like Chicago, they probably already been calling. But the answer is no, and that's the end of that. I think it's very obvious that the Los Angeles Lakers do not trade players when they're playing this well. We don't do that. We've never done that in the history of our organization. The guy's up here scoring 55 and 17, all this, and you think we're going to do what? He's leaving the organization? No. We brought him here so we could do this. And all the time we were waiting for him to come back around and do this. Somebody in the organization, I don't know if it was Jeanie, LeBron, Rambis, I don't know who it was, but somebody told Jeanie not to trade him, and she didn't do it, and it was the greatest decision she ever made. Quite literally. Ever made. When you consider what this dude's value is today. So, yeah, sometimes you just got to believe and hold on and know what you paid for and not sell it at a low price. No matter what it looks like, no matter what nobody says, you just got to keep a hold of what it is you own if you know what it's worth. Obviously, this is not property. We want to make that very clear, but we're thinking about it as a stock. You know what I mean? You got a stock that's struggling for a long time, and then boom, poof, it goes up into the sky, and now you got something worth having, and you wouldn't have if you didn't get through the tough times, the real tough times. The toughest of times, 16% from behind, from the field. Is that what it was? 16% from jumpers or something like that, what he was doing last year? You know what I'm saying? Injuries, missing 40 games. You know, street clothes, Davis, Chuck, and everything he had to say. Me and everything I had to say. It's everybody. We've all had stuff to say. And Anthony Davis has taken all of those challenges and he's answered the bell on each and every one of them. And I want to give him all the credit in the world for that, because we challenged him on this camera probably at least 7 times. Probably last season alone, probably that's 7 times, just to see him become what it is we want to see here. What we're seeing is what we were asking for, you know. Nothing short of what it is that he's capable of being. That's all I ask of any of these guys. Be who you can be. Not, you ain't got to try to be outside of your wheelhouse, and don't let anybody tell you to reach under it. And that's what I would say to Anthony Davis, you know, and keep believing in your conditioning. I will stress that 130%, because that's why he's able to accomplish as much as he's able to accomplish and overcome the injuries that may or may not occur. It's going to be about what shape he's in when those injuries happen to determine how quickly he can get back out there and how well he heals. And that goes for him and just about anybody else, I think. You know, and the last thing I want to say, well, who knows if it is, but one thing I definitely want to make sure I say here is that we need to make sure we don't wear Anthony Davis down. Don't wear him down. I think we've made that mistake. We've said it before. We say it again. Don't overuse the workhorse player. You go to him, and then you remember that you have other players on the team that need to be involved in order for your team to be good. It's the same thing that we asked LeBron James to do. Just because you can score 75 points all from behind the arc on a good night doesn't mean you keep shooting, because you do have other teammates. And they must be able to stay healthy enough to keep you above 500 when you are not healthy. And that is the key. If they're, and healthy is probably not the word, but good enough and engaged and have their roles set and their rhythm in place for all the stuff that they're supposed to be doing. All that stuff needs to be on a string and to be able to be called on at a moment's notice. And the reason why that is because we have players that we expect to exit the lineup that take on massive roles. The only one that I trust to be in the lineup all season long, every single game, is Russell Westbrook, you guys. And that's the reality of our circumstance. So if we're not working with that being in our plans, if we're not preparing to be able to win games without Anthony Davis and LeBron James, then we're defeating the purpose of what it is we're actually capable of reaching for. We can't win a championship if we're not good enough to beat some of these teams without those guys. And we're certainly, and this is just me reiterating the same exact thing, we're certainly not good enough to win a championship if we're heavily reliant on stars alone. No, absolutely not. And so that's what it's about, man. Do I want to make a trade? Only one that's going to make us absolutely better? I think I can afford to take chances with a championship team that I believe in this year, which is something that this looks like right now. But again, if we're too reliant and we can't win some of these games without those guys, then we're not actually that good. That's key. Can we win the games if we remove Anthony Davis from them? Discipline, 3-point discipline, obviously, and defending, transition defense. These are things that all of our guys have gone through together. Just because Anthony Davis is playing at 57 points a game or whatever the heck it's going to be, doesn't necessarily mean that they haven't been in this foxhole together, working against these tendencies as a team. Anything that takes them away from getting better as a team is a deterrent to what it is that we're trying to do. And Anthony Davis ain't about to win no MVP if we ain't winning a whole lot of basketball games. I don't give a damn what his numbers are. It's gonna go to Luka Doncic if he ain't winning. So we have to remember that the bottom line is to make sure that the games are successful and that possessions are successful on both sides of the floor. So that's what I'm preaching. That's what it's about, man. My name is BDF44. I thank you all for watching.